treat today. We're going to be talking about minding your business and just different aspects of business. But first, we're going to be talking about the real estate side. And we have two people coming up. They're going to come up separately because everything wasn't the way it was that I thought. So he's going to go first, and then you're going to go after he is to kind of piggyback. So again, we're going to be minding our business. As we've gone through this Atefu Conference, we've been talking about manning up, right? And a little while ago, we talked about we need businesses to begin to do the things that we need to do, the people that we need to touch, the places we need to create. We need to create temples. We need to create all these different things that is going to put us in a greater position to really help the world. But in the time we're in, it takes money to make that happen. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. And the first we're going to have up is Marie Resh Onk. And he's going to be speaking about, and listen, this brother got a wealth of knowledge, 40 years in the Nation of Islam, and just building businesses throughout the state, actually throughout the country. So without any further ado, we're going to have Marie Resh Onk speak.
Atefu, God man up. So first I want to take time to talk about some brief history. OI asked me to elaborate on some things as far as temple building goes. So, you know, my journey in the spiritual world started around about 15. And I joined the Nation of Islam, was part of the Fruit of Islam, and as a member of the Fruit of Islam, we had a thing called the number one poor treasure, which consisted of people from the community donating money for projects that had to be done for the community. I sort of got sent around to different areas to help build mosques. Now, the twist on that was when we were sent to a different city to build a mosque, we wasn't sent with finances. So we were sent to build a mosque, which meant that we had to generate the finance. We peddled, we sold jewelry, incense, oils, all different types of things. So we had a project. We would determine how much we needed, and we would go out in the streets and get the money, bring it back, and build the mosque. So I've been part of building a mosque in Brooklyn, upstate New York, D.C., Delaware, and in Philadelphia. I built two mosques in Philadelphia. I participated in quite a few projects. I even managed to build a church. So with that being said, I just wanted to, give you some kind of history on the sacrifice that it takes in order to build a Het Nater. It's just not show up, donate a couple coins, and keep it moving. You really got to be all the way in this thing to make it happen. It's a lot of hands-on stuff. You donate where you can, but most importantly, you give your time and you allow yourself to be a part of history. So with that being said, we'll talk about a path to finding a home. So Shakara. You want to go to the top, first slide. A path to home ownership. First thing you need to find a loan officer. You will find this, either you have your bank, credit union, anything like that. And when you find that loan officer, you're going to go through what they call a pre-approval for mortgage loan amount. This is going to determine how much home that you can buy. Now, this is not on the investment side. This is on residential. This is a home that you would buy for yourself. And I would say to any of the young guys listening, you don't have to wait until you get old and out of college and all of that to start preparing to buy a house. When I was bringing my son up, I start preparing him at age 15 by means of a paid credit card so that he could learn how to manipulate credit. So by the time he got to high school, he had a really good credit score, and I wouldn't allow him to buy a car or anything so he wouldn't have a debt to income. You know, in order to obtain a home, it's a lot of sacrifice. The biggest part of that is not creating debt to income so that when you get in front of a lender, they're not looking at all these different things that you owe for, worried about if you can pay their mortgage. Minimum requirements. You need at least a 680 credit score, and some lenders will lend at 620, but your interest rate will be horrible. So you want at least a 680 credit score. It's going to take about 3% of whatever the amount of the mortgage to be obtained by verified funds. What I mean by verified funds is funds that you've received from a job with a pay stub or anything like that. If you're an entrepreneur, then you have to be able to prove your income and you have to show a track record. They're just not going to take a letter of intent saying, oh yeah, I make this a certain amount of money. That's just not how it goes. Although being an entrepreneur, you can verify your income. It's just a matter of how you handle your finances that you make from your business. Next slide. Okay, next, you want to find a realtor. So finding a home. If you don't want to establish no new credit. Once you start that path, then you're building a track record of being responsible with your money and not overextending yourself. So this is the things that banks are looking for. You don't want to change your job. Even if you don't like the job, if you're trying to buy a house, you're going to have to keep it, at least until you buy that house. You got a minimum of 2 years. You don't want to move your money around in your primary bank account. What I mean by that is you don't want to be lending people money and then money coming back in frivolously, because the banks are going to start questioning you when they see all of these different transactions in your bank account that's not making sense to them. It may be for good purposes, it may not, but you just want to establish a bank account that's dedicated for your mortgage. This way you present a track record to the lender that makes it easy for them to lend you money because they see the consistency on how you're handling your money. Keep your debt to income down low as possible. We talked about that. Checking equity against the price of your new home. So what that means is if you're going to buy a home, let's hypothetically say the home is worth $100,000. and the price tag on the house is $100,000. That is not a good property to buy because you're maxed out. That means that you'll be paying money on that house at least 15 to 20 years before you have any equity in the house. Equity is the amount of money left after you obtain a mortgage. So if you find a home worth, let's say 175,000, and you can purchase it for 100, then you might be in the ball game. Um, it's going to vary according to the type of house you buy and the area. So this is just something you want to think about when you're buying a home. Um, okay, you can go to the next slide. Okay, pitfalls and red flags, and I always refer to this side. Now, there's other variances to this, but I always try to tell people about these things because a lot of people are misinformed. And if you go out here and you're fortunate enough to obtain a home and you do certain things, you will lose it. So, never refinance where you live at. Where you lay your head down, where your kids live, you don't want to refinance that house. You don't want to get a you don't want to get an epiphany and decide that I'm going to take the equity out of my house and do XYZ unless you're absolutely sure you can pull it off. Because what you're doing, you're putting your entire family in jeopardy of moving back home with mom. Period. Because if you take equity out your home, that's going to raise your mortgage. It's not going to be the mortgage you got when you got the home, which may be lower. When you take that equity out, it's going to raise. And if you can't pay it, they're going to take your home. So you want to think about these things before you had a question? That's yes. But you're not pulling money out of the home. You're absolutely right. My thing is to not refinance your home and pull $100,000 out, and now you got a mortgage that you couldn't afford in the first place because they ain't qualify you to afford that. You follow me? Yeah. Okay. The question the question that the Atefu asked was, can you refinance your home in order to lower your interest rate once your credit gets better? And the answer to that is yes. Um, most companies will refinance your home, and in most cases, you won't be keeping the same bank. You'll be refinancing with another bank that will give you a lower interest rate that will ultimately allow you to pay the home off sooner. Very good question. Okay. Always have a backup plan for your mortgage payments. And what I mean by that is most people buy homes as a partnership. Your wife and yourself. You'll get the home, um, and you guys will be chipping in, paying the mortgage. So, what happens if one or the other lose their income? Will you still be able to afford the home? So you got to take all of this stuff in consideration. So my suggestion for that is to always, even if you're man or wife, when you buy a home, buy the home that both of you could pay the mortgage by yourself if need be. Because you might have to carry your wife or she might have to carry you. So you just want to, be aware of everything that could come down the pipe and always be your own skeptic when it comes to buying a home. Think it through. Okay. Overpriced property. So what I mean by overpriced property is in today's market, there's a lot of homes out here that's really inflated. So they're pricing the area, not the home. So you will go in and buy the home. You will be upside down in the mortgage from day one. What that means, if anything ever happens, you won't even be able to sell the home because you'll be sort of stuck with it because if you sell it, you're going to get less than what you already got the mortgage for. So you don't want to, that goes back to that equity thing. You want to buy a home that's going to allow you to have equity in it from the beginning. This way, that gives you an advantage should something happen. Go ahead. Okay. Um, Never engage in a bidding war for the property. So in other words, when you put in a bid for a house and the realtor comes back and says that somebody else offered more than you did, and then you do a counter offer, would you always be prepared to do a counter offer? So you never bid what you actually want to pay. So what that means is if they keep jacking the price up, then fall back, find another dream home, because they're purposely pushing that amount. Okay. So never take an ARM mortgage. What an ARM mortgage is an adjustable rate mortgage. That means that thing fluctuates. 1 month it could be one thing, and the next month it could be triple. And you won't be able to do anything but pay it. So you never want to do that. You always want to get a 10, 15, or 30-year fixed rate mortgage. Next slide. Okay, what are the key things lenders look for? How's your credit score, your job, and your employment, and how long? We talked about that. Okay, no credit. If you have no credit, then you're going to need 12 months rental payment history. That'll serve as your credit. It's going to have to be verified, bank checks, all of that stuff, so forth and so on. You're going to need assets and savings. Next slide. That's it? Yeah, okay. So with that being said, my time is about up. And like I said in the beginning, you don't have to wait until you're an adult to start preparing yourself for a mortgage. People do it all the time. And what we do is we get out the gate late. We wait till we out of college, 30, 35, 40, and trying to get ourselves together for a mortgage. And at that time, we done probably messed up our credit, this, that, and the third. Prepare for it as teenagers. Prepare for it as teenagers. By the time you get out of college, you'll be ready to drop. You'll get your first job, you'll be able to drop right into a house. By the time you get my age, the house will be paid off or sooner.
God man up, give it up for Rob Marie. Give it up for Rob Marie. So we have another giant in the real estate industry, and I mean giant in the real estate industry. Shechem Ra Unk T is going to give you some powerful information again to go along and piggyback on Rob Marie about real estate, and he's a real estate agent, and he does a lot in that space. So without any further ado, Shechem Ra Unk T.
Raise it up a little bit. All right. All right. Heads pull. Peace and blessings. First of all, I'd like to say Dua and Atefu for my opportunity to be here. Dua to my Chef Sue. Dua to Shechem and Shechem Round if I'm in the first. Dua to the Nesui 2. Dua to Orwa M to Hudi Kamu. And dua to my local leadership, my queen mother, Orwat Maru Kaprama Wamet, who has nurtured and fed into me for almost 30 years. I've been a member of Osiris Society now 29 years. Next year will make 30 for me. I got my Kemetic name at age 24. At that point, I said I'm a member until they kicked me out, and they never did. So at 24, I made the decision, the declaration that this was my way of life. I'll be 54, God willing, next year.